What is up, everybody? This is John with Archer Fish. Thanks for tuning in. If you like this content, if you like fishing videos, how-to videos, all that stuff, please subscribe and like and share and all that good stuff. I just added a Patreon to my account, and I am humbled that people even recommended that to me. It's the only reason I did it, because they wanted to know how they can help support the channel, and I appreciate that so much. It means the world that you guys watch, that you guys comment, that you guys say hi to me out in the wild, and also that you wanted to help support the channel beyond just viewing it and commenting and all that stuff. So I really appreciate that. I'm new to the Patreon, so you know, if anyone has any pointers on how to get it going, you know, thank you, but it is going to be in the description. There's like membership tiers. There's the small one, Dink, the middle one, Keeper, the bigger one, PB, and the biggest, which is double digit. And then there's like merch perks that you get after a certain amount of time, and there's all kinds of cool stuff with my brand on it, and I really appreciate that. All right, that being said, if you watched a couple videos ago, I talk about like my YouTube channel, how many subscribers I have, which that's obvious, it's public, it's 1,700. How many views I get a month, which this last month was a little over almost 5,000, and how much money I make. So check that video out, because I talk about how much I might make having been doing this for almost 5 years now, maybe even longer, with posting almost every single week. And if you guys are watching the channel and you've been subscribers for a long time, you know that I post pretty consistently, and I try to be as open as possible with the information. That is the whole key to my channel, is I believe in just being as generous as I can with the information and how to catch fish, because this is what I would have wanted, you know, years ago when I first started fishing in California and it was tough to get a bite. You know, I grew up fishing in Florida, where catching a bass is very, very easy, and you could catch it in just a puddle. Out here, it's very tough, and I've got multiple videos on why that is and how you can kind of get around the obstacles that Southern California, you know, has to catching, you know, consistent fish. This video is going to be casting versus spinning, and this is for beginners. If you are mostly a spinning setup fisherman and you're looking to buy your first casting rod and reel, I was going to make this video a long time ago, but to be honest, I'm new to the casting rod and reel setup. I've only been doing it for maybe 2 years now. I don't remember exactly when I got the casting setups. Because spinning stuff was always very effective for me, and I caught plenty of fish, lots of good fish, and I didn't really need to buy a casting setup. But with some urging from some friends, and hearing their takes on it, like, you know, if your take on getting a casting setup is, you know, whatever, it looks cool, or, you know, having the most expensive thing is what you're all about, awesome. But my buddy Jeff was telling me that, like, he was giving me the rundown on all of the pros of getting a casting setup versus spinning setup, and that's what I appreciated, because I started weighing the pros and cons, and honestly, the pros outweighed the cons, and I eventually picked up. I've got like 4 now, which isn't a whole lot. Obviously, I've got way more spinning setups, and one of them is my big swim bait casting reel. But anyway, I'm just going to go through some of the casting versus spinning pros and cons based on what I've learned by fishing with them for the past couple of years. Okay, so my very first setup was a Abu Garcia Black Max. I took it out once and probably never again. It was just awful. The reel, I didn't really know what I was doing. This was probably like 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and the rod was too short, too stubby. Didn't know how to tune the reel. It was just a nightmare. It's not the highest quality. I've tried to mess with it again, but again, Anyway, my next pickup was the Shimano SLX Dc, okay? This was my first casting setup that I got. Now, I got the combo because I just wanted to make sure that the reel and the rod were gonna go together. So that's why I got it. Pros. It's not that expensive a setup. The rod is $99. I think the reel was like $189 or something like that. It is the DC version of the SLX. I know it's upside down, but there you go. Which means it's the digital version, which means when you cast it, it has a little digital stopper. It's supposed to help you with backlash. And you can hear the little ee as you go. It's very, very cool. The key to the digital reel as far as casting goes, when you launch this thing, you kind of have to be aware of where your lure is in the air. So if you're casting it, you can hear it starts to tighten up the moment that line starts to go slack. But you kind of still have to have your thumb there just to make sure, because if you cast short, or if the wind catches it or whatever else, you're still gonna get all kinds of bird nests. So you still have to have your thumb on there. But you'll feel the digital when it starts to tighten up the reel. So it does help. It is really cool. The other pro of this thing is it is super light. This is like, it's insanely light. This whole setup is very, very light. And the reason that's a good thing is you're fishing all day, you're fishing for hours. Let's say you're crankbait fishing or or jerkbait fishing or something like that, or even top water. This thing is light in your hand. It is not gonna wear you down at all. So you can throw this sucker all day long. That is very, very important. If you're out there and you've been fishing for 5 hours and you've been throwing the same thing over and over and over again, it can be a little taxing on your body, on your fingers, on your arm, whatever it is. So it being light is awesome. So the other pro for this, for having a casting reel, has been, and this was one of my buddy Jeff's main points, was just the profile of this thing compared to this thing, like loading it in your car or loading it in the boat. If you've got 4 of these all next to each other, that is barely anything to hold, to carry, to store, to put on the boat, to put in your car, whatever it is. You've got 4 of these, oh my God, it is a pain in the butt just because of the profile of this thing. You got all these spinning reels everywhere. It just is a lot more to deal with. It's gonna get tangled up. It's just a pain in the butt. So that was like really one of the deciding factors for me, as silly as that is. But yeah, that is a major pro for me, is the profile as far as carrying these. I like to take at least 5 rods out when I go fishing, so I don't have to keep retying, and different rods for different applications, obviously. I got my little light, finesse thing for drop shot, very specifically, or for light stuff. I've got a couple other casting setups, so I don't have to keep retying. And then I've got behind me a couple of other medium-sized spinning setups for Senko fishing. And that's pretty much it. It's pretty much all I use them for, is Senko fishing. So that is another pro. The other thing with the casting setup is the backbone of these rods is stronger than the other reels. And what I mean by backbone is the give. Like, I've caught some really nice fish on this on top water, throwing a Lucky Craft gunfish for bass down in San Vicente. Check that video out because I got it on my page. But the bass down at San Vicente, the way they school up in the summertime, I mean, those are some good fish. And, when you get hit, you want to be able to, bring that sucker in. If I'm using a finesse, if I'm using a spinning rod, you're going to have, a lot of times, you're going to have way too much give in the rod, meaning it's going to bend a little too far. And because you're throwing that top water a mile to try to get bit, you're not gonna keep that fish, or it's much harder to stay pinned with, if your rod has too much give in it. You want backbone so you can set the hook and fight that fish. And there's not, because if the fish has too much give, you could break off, it could go on a run. There's all kinds of things that can happen. So the other pro for these casting rod and reel setups is the rod has very strong backbone. As you can see with this thing, I mean, it's very sturdy. Now, as a little side note, this is the 3rd SLX Dc by Shimano setup I've had. This is the 2nd one. The first one broke on one of my first days. The line got wrapped around the top, and I went to cast, and it just snapped off. It was crazy. I just got the thing, so they sent me a new one. This was the new one. But if you watch my video at Keitech a couple of weeks ago, you'll see that this sucker, I got snagged, and I literally just was popping the lure up to try to get it unsnagged, and this thing broke. So, like, I mean, That's pretty crazy that this, you know, it broke doing that. Again, people have told me that like they've had theirs for a long time and never broke it. Other people were saying like, you know, I was pulling too hard. And again, that all has to do with the backbone and the give. If I had this spinning rod snagged like that and I was yanking it, it never would have broke. So that is kind of a pro and a con of this thing, is the backbone is awesome, but be careful if you get snagged and you don't, you know, break the sucker. Again, maybe it's just this brand, you know, people have had them much longer than I have. So, but again, I like this one because it is affordable. And it is very lightweight and it's very effective. You know, I catch a lot of fish on this. I use it primarily for crankbait fishing, topwater fishing, jerkbait fishing. That's basically it, and it is very, very effective. It is a one piece, just so you know. So, those are the pros of that and kind of the con. Obviously, the other con with the casting setup is, you know, it's not always going to be so nice and neat in here. You're going to get bird's nests. I've got it very fine-tuned now for a lot of my reaction bait applications, jerkbait, crankbait, and topwater and stuff like that. So when it's finely tuned, you don't really have to mess with it, and you don't even have to put your thumb on the reel to avoid the bird's nest. That being said, you're still going to get them. You know, who knows what happens? Maybe you accidentally hit something, or, you know, the wind catches it or whatever. So things are going to happen, and you are going to get bird's nest. You're going to have to cut it off, re-spool, all this stuff. So that is the one con, obviously, as everybody knows with the casting setup, is the bird's nests do come. Once you get it tuned into a certain bait, that's why I like to have multiple ones, so I don't have to keep tuning it for different things. Once I have it tuned in, I mean, you can go a long time without getting a bird's nest, as long as you're careful and whatever. But you know how it is. You know, you're in the moment. I get very passionate. I get very like worked up, and sometimes I make mistakes and I get the bird's nest. So those are the pros and cons of a casting setup. Again, $99 for the rod, $189 for the reel. Super great sort of starting setup. One of my other setups is the Tatula by Daiwa. This is the CT, I believe, 8.1 ratio, which means every time you reel it in once, you're getting 8 revolutions of the reel, and that much more line is coming in. It's a very, very high number, and it's awesome. And apparently there's ways, like if you don't want it to come in that fast for, you know, maybe crankbait or something. I don't know. I'm not that skilled at all that stuff, but all I do know is I use this for crankbait and jerkbait, and is the X45 Tatula 7-foot rod paired up with it, and it has been super, super effective. Again, with the same applications as that one. This one's a little bit sturdier. It's a little bit heavier. It does feel nice. That being said, if you've heard in my latest videos, I think there's a ball bearing loose or something in there because it makes this weird noise. And, you know, that's just from maybe, you know, 5 months of really fishing it hard. That started to happen. So I'm going to have to get that repaired, I guess, because it sounds like crap. But anyway, this is a fantastic setup. Not as light as the SLX, but it's been fantastic. Daiwa's, I think it's a great brand, and I love their stuff. It just feels great in your hand. Feels very sturdy, and I catch a lot of fish. In fact, on this one, I probably lose a lot less fish than I do on the SLX. The other pro of a spinning setup, for me, for the many, many years that I was always throwing these, you know, for basically my whole life, is comfortability. You just, you know, I'm very comfortable throwing this for everything. You know, I've caught fish on jerkbaits on this, topwater fish. Obviously, it's very versatile, you know, Senko fishing, drop shot fishing, all that stuff. You can kind of mix and match and try different things. So, yeah, the spinning setup has been fantastic. And like I said, one of the pros for a spinning rod is there is a lot of give, you know, and that has its place as well. So the spinning setup feels great, very affordable. This one, you know, this reel is only 35 bucks. Shimano Sienna 2500. You can get like a Sedona for like 60 bucks, Stratic for like 200 bucks. They still make those. And this is the Procyon rod, and it is medium light, 7 foot. Okay, so it's a little bit lighter. Like I said, I've got 6 pound test on here. But yeah, very versatile. You can throw pretty much everything with a spinning setup, and I have. All right, so you're looking to get into a casting setup, man, that Shimano is pretty fantastic. If you want something a little bit heavier, the Tatula, and it's about the same price. It was like $200, I think, for the reel, and about $100 for the rod. So about a $300 setup. So that is it. Thanks for watching. I will see you tomorrow.